The winter light over Maine settles into the old stones of Rhineland-Palatinate, carrying with it a political message that instantly travels far beyond Germany's borders. What might appear at first glance to be a routine policy comment by the German Chancellor has rapidly become one of those moments that captures an underlying tension at the heart of Western politics. Europe and the United States remain allies, partners, and longtime defenders of shared democratic principles, yet the tone emerging from Berlin today suggests a period of re-evaluation. The statement by Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, is not only a reaction to Washington's recently published national security strategy, it is also a window into deeper concerns about how Europe views itself, its democratic resilience, and its strategic independence at a time when global alignments are shifting. Merz's quoted line is direct and surprisingly candid, especially toward a close ally. Some of it is understandable, some of it is acceptable, and some of it is unacceptable to us from a European point of view. I see no need for the Americans to try to save democracy in Europe now. If it were possible to save it, we could do it on our own. With that statement, he draws a clear boundary. Europe acknowledges the American perspective, but rejects the idea that European democracy is fragile enough to require saving by Washington. The phrase cuts directly into ongoing debates about sovereignty, the balance between cooperation and autonomy, and the strategic direction of Western alliances. The fact that the US national security strategy included references to what it described as civilizational erasure in Europe has raised eyebrows across European capitals. That phrase implies that democratic institutions and cultural foundations on the continent are at existential risk. American policymakers, particularly those in the current administration, appear intent on framing global politics as a struggle between democratic civilizations and authoritarian threats. But European leaders, including Merz, seem wary of adopting language that suggests Europe is on the brink of collapse. It is not only a matter of wording, it is about narrative control. Who defines Europe's condition? Who claims authority to diagnose Europe's political future? For many in Berlin and Brussels, the danger of exaggerated language is that it can become a justification for intrusive policy approaches, whether diplomatic, economic, or military. Historically, Europe has welcomed American involvement in security, particularly through NATO. But today, Europe is increasingly conscious of the need to diversify its strategic capacities. The war in Ukraine, technological dependency, energy supplies, and China's rise have pushed the continent into conversations it cannot avoid. How independent should Europe be? How much should it rely on Washington in a world where interests occasionally diverge? Germany's own strategic thinking has evolved dramatically over the past decade. Once hesitant to increase defense spending or assert strong geopolitical positions, Berlin now finds itself balancing the expectations of NATO, the demands of European solidarity, and the concerns of a public that remembers the consequences of militarization. When a German chancellor openly calls parts of a US strategy unacceptable, it is never just a semantic disagreement. It signals a shift in tone, perhaps even a pivot in direction. In many ways, Merz's remarks reflect a broader unease in European politics about being defined through someone else's lens. American strategy documents often frame Europe as a democratic pillar that must be defended against external threats such as Russia, China, or the rise of authoritarianism worldwide. But Europeans may interpret those threats differently, prioritizing internal reforms, diplomatic engagement, or regional autonomy. The message from Berlin is subtle but firm. Europe is not a passive subject in global democratic struggles. It is a strategic actor, capable of protecting itself and deciding its own internal priorities. This exchange also comes at a moment when transatlantic relations are undergoing significant recalibration. With shifting leadership styles in Washington and varying approaches to foreign policy, the United States and Europe often find themselves aligned in principle, but not always in method. Whether it concerns China's economic leverage, the future of NATO, or energy cooperation, Europe is no longer content to follow American initiatives without offering its own perspective. The era when Washington wrote the script and Europe followed the cues is fading. Looking deeper, the conversation touches on identity. What does democracy mean in Europe today? What challenges actually threaten European institutions? Analysts point out that democracy in Europe faces internal pressures such as polarization, migration debates, and the rise of populist movements. But many Europeans believe the solutions lie in democratic renewal within Europe, not necessarily in strategic guidance from across the Atlantic. Merz's statement was also shaped by context. The speech took place in Mainz, a symbolic setting with deep historical and cultural roots. Germany has long viewed itself as a guardian of European unity, especially within the European Union. To speak of civilizational erasure in such a place touches emotional and political memories, from post-war reconstruction to modern European integration. Germany, once rebuilt with American support, now insists that its democracy stands firmly on its own foundation. Another key layer is geopolitical timing. The remark comes during intense debates about European defence capabilities. Several EU countries are accelerating joint military projects, boosting defence budgets, and exploring ways to strengthen Europe's own strategic autonomy within NATO. The United States welcomes a stronger European defence, but only if it supports broader American goals. Europeans, however, increasingly see autonomy not as a luxury, but as a necessity in an unpredictable world. Germany's role is particularly sensitive because of its size, economy, and historical legacy. As Europe's largest economy and political anchor, Germany's voice carries weight. When a German chancellor publicly challenges American wording, it influences other European governments that may hold similar concerns but express them less directly. Furthermore, Europe today is trying to navigate multiple relationships simultaneously. Its ties to Washington remain essential, especially in security. Yet Europe's economic ties with China, its diplomatic engagement with the Middle East, and its energy diversification efforts reveal a continent strategically aware of multipolar realities. The United States tends to frame global politics in binary terms: democracies versus autocracies, West versus authoritarian powers. Europeans may prefer a spectrum that includes negotiation, compromise, or pragmatic engagement. One of the most interesting aspects of Merz's remark is the casual confidence with which he rejects the idea of America saving democracy in Europe. Historically, after World War II and during the Cold War, American leadership played a huge role in rebuilding Western Europe and defending it against Soviet influence. But 7 decades later, Europe feels differently about its needs and capabilities. Today, European institutions, governance structures, and economic strength present a continent that does not see itself as vulnerable in the same way. The language of security is always political. When Washington describes Europe in existential terms, European leaders ask whether such language serves American political messaging more than European strategic reality. Does it help European stability, or does it paint the continent as endangered in a way that exaggerates threats? This debate is not just rhetorical. It shapes public opinion, national policy, and international cooperation. Merz, as leader of Germany, must balance national priorities with European unity and transatlantic ties. His choice of words suggests an effort to reassure European citizens that democracy is not collapsing. It is a reminder that Europe continues to be defined not by fear, but by resilience. The statement serves domestic politics as well, projecting strength and confidence in German leadership amid global uncertainties. Yet beneath the confident tone lies an important message to the United States. Partnership must be based on mutual respect, not assumptions of dependency. The transatlantic alliance remains strong, but it must evolve. Europe wants equality, not guardianship. And that means challenging narratives that position Europe as a civilization in need of rescue. As the world observes China's rise, tensions with Russia, and shifting political landscapes across continents, the United States and Europe still share core values: democracy, rule of law, and human rights. But how they defend these values may differ. The American approach emphasizes global democratic confrontation, while Europe may favor diplomacy, multilateral institutions, and regional cooperation. The divergence lies not in goals, but in strategy. In the coming years, Europe will continue to shape a global role distinct from its historical image. It is no longer defined by Cold War alignments or post-war recovery. It must confront new realities: technological competition, climate challenges, digital sovereignty, and political fragmentation. In all these areas, Europe seeks to act strategically, sometimes alongside Washington, sometimes independently. What happened in Mainz is not a rupture, but a recalibration. Germany sent a signal not of rejection, but of autonomy. Europe respects American engagement, but reserves the right to define its own condition and its own future. As new global powers assert themselves and geopolitical uncertainty grows, European self-confidence becomes a diplomatic tool. The reaction in Washington will likely be measured. The United States knows that Europe is its closest ally, but it must also recognize Europe's evolving identity. The phrase civilizational erasure might reflect strong rhetorical strategy for American audiences, but Europeans hear something different: an implication that Europe's democratic structure is weak or endangered without American intervention. That message does not sit comfortably with a continent determined to stand on its own democratic foundations. As the camera focuses again on Mainz, one can imagine the Chancellor stepping away from microphones, knowing that his words will travel quickly. Europe will debate this statement, Washington will analyze it, and analysts worldwide will interpret its meaning. And yet, the underlying message remains a simple one: Europe's democracy is not something to be saved by external powers. It is something cultivated, defended, and sustained by Europeans themselves.